Last night I was watching a video that I can't really seem to get my mind off of, and it gave me a great idea for a video topic. It was one of those text-to-speech Reddit videos, and I know I've said in the past I hate those kind of videos. I usually try to avoid those videos like the plague. I mean, I'm sure all of you know this because it sparked some of the most inane, dumbass drama I've ever involved myself in. That was a huge waste of time. But, anyways, whatever. The title kind of caught my attention because it said, yes, women are predators too. And I was interested to see what the video had to say. And it wasn't someone talking, it was just a text to speech voice reading out replies to a thread written by males detailing the sexual abuse they faced at the hands of women. And a lot of these posts went also into detail about the trauma they experienced following the sexual abuse, and it's truly an eye-opener. I mean, I was never one of those people who said women can't rape, males can't be victims of rape or any kind of sexual abuse, because that is just very naive and short-sighted to say, and, very insensitive towards male victims of sexual abuse. But I've always hated the types who the incel or MGTOW types who would use these kind of stories to say, yep, this is why we hate women, this is why women are bad, and yada yada yada, go into men's rights and all that bullshit. But it's true, there are men who do face abuse at the hands of women, and society does not treat it as seriously as it should. And I am so tired of this double standard. Every time some story comes out, and it feels like these kind of stories come out every few months, well, you're probably not going to see these kind of stories now because of the circumstances we're in, but prior to this pandemic shit, it seemed like every few months there would be this big story about some teacher who is attractive in like their mid 20s having sex with one of their underage students, and you would see a bunch of people replying to these stories saying, wow, that kid is so lucky, he got to fuck like the one of the hottest teachers in the schools. And I'm like, what the fuck, are you kidding me? Like, would you say this if it were a female student having sex with a male teacher? No, you wouldn't, because the roles would be reversed. You view women as victims, but you do not view males as victims. And that is a complete bullshit double standard. Just because a sexual predator is young, petite, and may have a pretty face doesn't mean they're not what they already are, a sexual predator. They can still cause psychological damage to their victims, and it is a complete abuse of power, especially if they're significantly older than their victim and are in a position of authority, like say they're a teacher or a professor of a young male student that they choose to take advantage of. That shit could cause serious damage. And you may say, well, there are plenty of cases of boys who have sex with their teachers or any woman that's older and have no regrets whatsoever and loved it. Sure, but that still doesn't mean that that woman is not a sexual predator. Would you say the same thing if a young girl had sex with an older guy and enjoyed it, didn't have any regrets at all? Would you still say the same thing? Probably not, because you view her as a victim, but do not view the young male as a victim. And again, I am so fucking sick of this stupid double standard. And can we finally admit this? Patriarchy is a problem and contributes to things like this. I do not believe patriarchy is a women's only issue, and this is a prime example of how it negatively affects both genders, because it reinforces negative gender roles, like males are supposed to have dominance and superiority over females, and thus this kind of thinking reinforces the notion that males can't be victims at the hands of females because they're supposed to have superiority over the females, and cannot fathom when the roles are reversed, when the female is the one perpetuating harm to the male. Because society is always so conditioned to believe that it's always the female that is the helpless victim, when that is so fucking far from the truth. There are so many instances where it's the males that are experiencing harm and have abuse inflicted on them, and they are the victims, and sometimes their abusers are women. And again, society is so conditioned to believe that it's always the women that are always at the hands of abuse, and it's always the male that is always the one perpetuating the abuse. And when the roles are reversed, when it's the woman that's inflicting the abuse and it's the male that's experiencing said abuse, society just tends to not treat it as seriously because it is not so ingrained in their minds that, yes, males can be victims as well. And this is a serious problem problem in our society, in our world in general. And this isn't to take away from any women's rights issues or anything, because I know rape and sexual abuse is still something that disproportionately affects women, but I am just saying, do not ignore any of the male victims that this could happen to, because they exist and should not be ignored, and all victims should be heard and believed and taken seriously. Some of the people in that video and in the Reddit thread, they linked the original Reddit thread in the description to that video, and I read through it. I read through a lot of the replies in that thread, and a lot of them said the same thing. They were afraid to come out with their story. They were afraid to share their experience with anyone in their real life because they were afraid of not being taken seriously, being laughed at because, ha ha ha, you experienced abuse at the hands of a woman? I mean, chances are you're probably much bigger than that woman and would be able to easily fight them off. So why did you just sit there and take it? Why didn't you just stand up to them or do anything else to fend them off? And it's just so fucking toxic. I'm so tired of this stupid fucking rhetoric. Fuck this world. Victims are victims regardless of their genitalia, and abusers are abusers regardless of their genitalia, and it is absolutely disgusting to write off one's abuse just because they may not fit the quota of what is a typical victim in your eyes. It is absolutely disgusting, and this type of thinking should absolutely be abolished because it hurts victims and leads to more psychological damage because they are too afraid to come out with their stories because, again, they don't exactly fit into what society sees as a typical victim. And this is absolutely even more reason to abolish patriarchy and to finally acknowledge its harmful effects on society. But oh no, that's just some stupid SJW nonsense made up to make women superior to men. I know, I already know all the stupid anti-SJW talking points, as I used to be part of that crowd. Anyway, the original video will be linked down in the description. Definitely give it a watch, as it is truly an eye-opener, especially if you're still under the delusion that men cannot be victims of females inflicting abuse on them and still cheer whenever you hear stories of female teachers having sex with their underage students and still take part in patriarchal thinking that men can't be victims because they're supposed to like sex. Please, for the love of God, grow a brain. Anyway, that's all I have to say. Bye-bye.